Yes, you read the title right. No, this isn't clickbait. I genuinely think that the Starfield DLC is good. In fact, I think it's some of the best content in the base game. Now, before you get your pitchforks out and you start clicking the dislike button, at least hear me out. But before we begin, I want to explain, this is a no spoiler review. There will be spoilers at the end, but I will give my final score and I will warn you when we get there. So, you guys that haven't played the DLC yet and you're just wondering what I think, or you want a more positive look at the DLC review, you can watch it and then leave. But yeah. Also, I want to explain how you even get in the DLC because I've seen a lot of confusion around that. Well, how to get in the DLC is you, after completing the quest in the main campaign, one small step, what you do is you take your ship and you jump to an empty system. What I mean by empty system is like a system that isn't owned by the UC or Freestar or the Crimson Fleet where you have to check in, you know? And then a space station will come in and it will send like a message to you and then you'll get the quest line. What I recommend is do not go on the space station until you're at least a higher level. You have good weapons, good spacesuits, good skills like the medicine skill or the medic skill, I mean, and stuff like that, because this DLC is hard. At least it was for me. Now, Starfield isn't a hard game. Starfield has never irritated me. This DLC got me tweaking. Like, I was tweaking out, bro. I have never tweaked out more playing Starfield than this DLC. It reminded me when I tried to get the Mantis suit and ship way earlier than I was supposed to. It was that hard. I mean, it was fun at first, but then at the end it was just really annoying. So yeah, just get prepared, get a bunch of healing stuff like trauma packs, med packs, whatever. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. So like most people, there's stuff I was disappointed about, and I would like to get into the negatives. First negative, the cost. Now this is a major point of controversy really for most of Bethesda's recent actions when it comes to their paid stuff around Starfield. Like, I feel the cost is just like too much, or like, yeah, adjusting for inflation, it's fairly priced, I would say, but what you're getting in this DLC, which honestly there's a lot in this DLC anyways, but I feel it's not enough to justify the $30, right? And again, I know someone's gonna say like, oh, they're adjusting for inflation, which is fair. But like I said, like the main campaign is short, and there's only one settlement in the game, and like there's only really one planet that most of it takes place on. And I mean, it is a big area. There's 50 new POIs, and you get new weapons, new space suits, and all that. New companions. But like, that's not enough. That's not $30 for me, though. I think, but that's just my 2 cents. And also the performance. The performance of this DLC is really bad. Sometimes you get like smooth 60. It runs smooth. It 50s, and then you get PowerPoint levels of bad. And usually this inconsistency happens when you're going like past like the Citadel, the temple, whatever. It's because there's so many like textured rocks. I noticed like they would become untextured if you have like the Xbox on quality mode, or not quality, performance mode. Like they would become untextured, like very untextured. And I think it's the rocks that are doing that. But it's really bad, especially when you're in the vehicle. And speaking of the vehicle, This was probably the most disappointing thing to me. The vehicle was barely even used, or basically Varun Kai was barely vehicle usable. Like, for example, around the temple, it was so rocky that, like, yikes. And the city didn't have roads or anything, And, like, I was so sure that there would be more vehicle support because they marketed it with the vehicle, right? And I was so sure that I proudly said that they would have roads and stuff. But I was wrong. I'll take the L. It was disappointing. And also, again, the performance would drop. That's just a little irritating. Also, it's not very scary. Like, at all. It's not even, like, freaky. Well, a little bit. It's a little disturbing sometimes, but just not really as scary as they wanted you to think it was. I think the horror aspect was overblown. It did get me like, woo, like, oh, didn't see that coming a few times, but for the most part, like, it wasn't that scary. I'm just gonna be completely honest with y'all. It wasn't that scary. It had its moments, but for the most part. But honestly, I didn't think it was going to be that freaky, so it wasn't that much of a disappointment. And finally, this part isn't really even a disappointment. This is more like in between, like, disappointment and, like, I don't really care. Same thing with the horror point earlier, but the main campaign, it's a bit short. That's another point of contention that we've heard, is that the main campaign is pretty short. Now, when you're having fun, everything seems to just go by really fast, and the DLC is no different. But I feel like the campaign, like, it's about as long as the campaigns, like the quest campaigns in the base game. And normally I would be fine with that. But the thing is that I paid $30 for this. I paid almost half of what I paid for Starfield for this DLC, like under half. And, like, surely it could be a little longer, Now, the side content, like the side quests in the DLC, are pretty good. They're some of the best side quests. We'll get into that later. But when it comes to the main quest, I like the main quest. It's the best main quest line in the game. Right? It's the best, like, faction quest line in the whole game, in my opinion. But it's just, if it was a little bit longer, I think it would have, if it was longer, just a couple hours longer, if it was like 10 hours long, it would have been, like, perfect, I think. But oh well, beggars can't be choosers. But now, let's get into the stuff I did like. Let's start with the planet. So, one of my complaints with Starfield, a lot of other people's complaints, is that Starfield's planets are very just, like, they don't stand out. They don't stand out in any way. And, like, it's, I don't know, just, like, not disappointing. And I know why they don't stand out, because, scientifically speaking, actually, none of the planets would actually look like Varun Kai, because that's not scientifically possible. Well, I don't care. I'm playing a game where you literally have space powers. I don't really care about scientific accuracy. Well, I kind of do. Well, with Starfield, because they promoted it as, like, more NASA punk aesthetic, right? But honestly, like, I still want planets to stand out, And this planet, though, it stands out, like, hard. It is the most beautiful anything I've seen in a Bethesda game. And that's saying a lot. They have, like, say what you will about Bethesda, but their visuals are really good. Like, for example, Oblivion. Oblivion still looks great to this day. Like, without mods. I'm talking about vanilla Oblivion. And Shattered Space, a Varun Kai, beautiful moon. Like, holy cow. Like, the purple, and, I'm a sucker for art style, man. But the purple, the blue, and, like, the black. in the orange. Oh man, like whoever designed this planet is a genius. So like, remember, like one of the things I said, I don't remember if I said that in my Problems with Starfield video, but I was like, there's no planet like you could point to and be like, oh, that's from Starfield. Well, I mean, like we take the settlements out and we just show a random picture, like you couldn't guess what that planet is. But with Varun Kai, you're like, that's from Starfield. That's Varun Kai from Starfield. It is so beautiful. It's great. The creatures on there, they're awesome. The Groats specifically, they did something a lot of people have been wanting. The Groats, I think that's how you say it. Those like goat things. They come in 3 different varieties: male, female, and kid, which is something a lot of people have been wanting. So I think that's neat. Different varieties with aliens. And just the aliens themselves are a lot nicer. Or not nicer, but they're really good. Like, if there's one thing about Starfield you can say, like, objectively, the alien designs are really nice. They put a lot of work into a lot of them. Some of them are pretty like, you know, like, oh, it's a dinosaur, but like some are really nice. Next is like Dazra, the city, the settlement. It's great. It's about the same size as Aquila City. Like, if I had to compare it, it's pretty big. It's like the size of a major settlement, and there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of buildings and, you know, the vibe. Now, it's, of course, like, lore accurate for the most part. You know, it's not going to be to scale with lore, obviously, but it's pretty, you know, it's like aesthetically accurate for Varun Kai and what I would think like the people of Dazra would make like House Varun. It's aesthetically pleasing as well, and like the temple, the citadel, just there engulfed in that little like blue force field vortex thing. Such a beautiful sight, man. It's awesome. Also, the non-essential NPCs, like the civilians, look a lot better than they do in base Starfield. Like, it's almost night and day. Like, these people actually look like people. They don't look like whatever this, you know, these other people from New Atlantis look like, you know, the one you've seen the famous pictures with the eye pop and all that. Yeah, those are ugly. This looks nice. They need to redo those NPCs, please Bethesda, redo those NPCs. I also noticed they had a lot more conversations as well. Like, I feel like every time I walked past them, they were always talking about something, and it's just interesting to see like what the people were thinking. So this isn't a spoiler because it was in the promotional material, but what happened was that like the city of Dazra was like destroyed in a accident when the speaker Anasco was trying to reach the Great Serpent by trying to kind of redo what Janan Varun, his grandfather and the leader of House Varun, like the founder, I guess, was trying to do. He's trying to speak to the Great Serpent, but it failed and it took half of Dazra with it. That's why the city is so small in comparison to what it would be. That's where all the rocks are around the citadel. That's where a city was, but it got destroyed. And that's crazy. Of course, everyone's gonna be depressed. Like, everyone always talks about the incident, because it only happened like a few days ago by the time you get there. And like, there was this one guy I talked to who was like so depressed about like his wife getting like killed. He like was thinking about, you know, ending it, right? And also there was like a couple who lost their house in like the destruction that I walked past. It was just sad, man. Like, everyone's like worried, and the vibe was very depressing, I would say, but in a good way, not like depression, like it's ruining the mood. No, it made the mood. Like, you could tell this was a very like destructive thing that happened. You feel for these people. And speaking of, let's talk about the lore and the quest design and all of that. So I'm about to say something. This may be the most controversial part of the video, but the quest design and the lore is some of the best in Starfield. The best, honestly. If they design Starfield with this, like the Shattered Space type quest design and world building in mind, Starfield would be better than Skyrim. Like, okay. Honestly, Starfield, okay, not wanting to go on a big tangent, but Starfield has the potential to be, or it had the potential to be better, as in the roleplay, than Skyrim. Because unlike Skyrim, you get to choose your background, you get to choose like 3 different traits about yourself, and there's more opportunity for roleplay. Skyrim had none of that. And Starfield's way better than Fallout 4 in the roleplay sense, that's for sure. But like, I don't know, it feels like it's tied with Skyrim because it has a lot of like issues. Like, Starfield has a lot of like specific dialogue options. Like, if whatever trait you have and whatever your background is, it will like give you different dialogue options based on that, which I love. But the reason why I say it's like with Skyrim, it still has like an issue, like base Starfield has an issue with you being evil. And even Skyrim had this, but like Starfield, I mean, there were a handful of quest lines, like for example, the Crimson Fleet quest line. But like, there was no like truly evil thing you could do, right? But for Shattered Space, that's a little different. For example, the first quest I did was the Brothers quest line. And it's a side quest in the DLC where basically these 2 brothers are trying to fight. And I'm not going to spoil what happens, but there is a major decision you make with 4 outcomes. Alright, 4. Yeah. 4. Pretty nice. Again, if they walked into Starfield with this mindset, it would have been received a lot better, I think, when it came to the RPG stuff. I think a lot of people don't really criticize it for the RPG stuff. I think a lot of people I think they're either fine with it or they like it. It's just the exploration part, the space part of the game, a lot of people have a problem with, which is fair. And the main quest, it did everything I thought it would. It let us explore these houses that were left after the 3 major houses that were really left after half of the city got destroyed, and let us just see what they were all about. I wish they were, to be fair, I wish there was more like differentiating each other. I liked how it wasn't so stereotypically like the houses are fighting amongst themselves and they're killing each other. You know, they're animals and they're so different with ideals. Honestly, they were in sync for the most part. I mean, they were pretty reasonable with each other. They pretty much got along. I mean, yeah, there was fighting and bickering, but there wasn't anything like really bad. You know, it was House Dulketh, House Vithal, and House, I think it started with a K. And yeah, that was something I wanted from this DLC, and it delivered, so I'm glad. And I wish we just spent more time with the houses, though, to really know them. I think 2 missions with each house would have been great, but there probably are side missions. I didn't do all the side quests in the DLC, so yeah. I also liked, since, you know, the whole tile that you spend most of your time in the DLC was all handcrafted, which is great. Bethesda still got it, okay? They can still make fun, explorable areas. I like the DLC. Just the main campaign flowed a lot better than like Starfield. Like with Starfield, it's like you do some stuff on this planet, then they want you to go to this planet, then you go to this planet, then you go back to the one you started on. You know, you're like playing like, I don't know, like a game of Pong. You know, you're going back and forth, and it's kind of like, I don't know. But with this, it flows a lot better. You're in the same place now. I think they should have added more like holes, or more like, I would say, like different cities, like different little cities around the planet. But I think this is fine, you know. I don't think it's a deal breaker that it all takes place here, because Dazura was just the main hub. House Varun isn't really that big, besides like, well, like, you know, in the lore it's big, but like, you know, in the game sense, you know. I mean, there's more of an emphasis on decision making that I really like. And honestly, a lot of people describe it as watered down Morrowind. And I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of people say it as a bad thing. I don't think it is. I think that's a good thing. I'd rather have watered down Morrowind than not them trying at all. Because I think Bethesda does want to go back. Okay, I think they want to be good again. I think they want to be on players' good sides. But it's just like, they're kind of trying to push for a market that doesn't exist anymore. Again, I explained in my last video, but they're trying to go for a system, a market that's not there anymore, and the new fans aren't liking it. So I don't know what they're gonna do. We'll have to see with the next DLC. So, and also Andreja, she has special dialogue. I didn't take her on the DLC, but I have heard reports that she does have special dialogue. Now, there has been a rumor going around that Bethesda didn't do that, and that's not true. It's bugged. So basically, if you have the leadership patch or skill, if you haven't fully upgraded, then for some reason right now, her dialogue options are bugged, which is so weird. And such a major oversight. But yeah, she does have special dialogue options. So, in conclusion, why is this DLC so disdained or disliked? Well, I posed a theory, again in my last video, where I think it's disliked mainly because like Bethesda is making a watered down version of a game that the player base isn't like they're trying to, like, they were trying to appease a player base for a, you know, that's not there, that's not playing Starfield, and the new player base doesn't like that stuff that much because they're used to more on rails, like straight to action, you know, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you know, the Morrowind player base and people that like Morrowind are mostly gone, I think. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Also, I think it's because it's Starfield. Let's just be completely honest here. If it has that Starfield logo, it's gonna get hate. Let's just be completely honest, because Bethesda isn't on anyone's good list right now, which is fair. Right? I'm not trying to discredit people who don't like Starfield. I'm not a Starfield glazer, right? The glazing allegations aren't real. But let's just be real. That's probably, it's gonna happen. Alright? Bethesda isn't hot right now, so. But if you like look at the reviews, especially on like Metacritic, like only like 7 or 8 people reviewed it. So it just goes to show that like there's just not a lot of interest in Starfield right now, which is sad. But I think if Bethesda keeps doing this update thing, more interest will be put onto Starfield, and then when the next DLC comes out, it will do better. Now, time for the final score. My final score. So how I rank DLC or like review DLC is I compare it to the game. Like whatever I think of the game is like I think Starfield's an 8 out of 10. Like I'm not gonna go like 8.5 out of 10. It would probably be like an 8.5 out of 10. You know, And if the DLC is the best part of that game, then it gets bumped up to a 9. So yeah, I think Shattered Space is either like an 8.8 or a 9, light 9 out of 10. Because compared to Starfield, it has some of the best content in Starfield, in my opinion. It's definitely the best faction in the game, the best planet in the game, the best side quests in the game, the best everything is the best in this DLC, except the performance, the price, and just, you know, there's a lot of talking, but I like talking. I like politics. I like talking. Yeah, there's a lot of talking. But honestly, in comparison to Starfield, I'd say it's like a 9 out of 10. Now, on its own as a DLC, like, I would say like an 8 or a 7 out of 10 DLC, I would say. Like, on its own, if we're ranking it to, like, Elden Ring's new DLC, I would say, like, it's not as big as that. If it was bigger, when it not just like bigger as like Dazara's bigger, but like the campaign and stuff like that. If that was bigger, then yeah. Now time for spoilers. Okay, so yeah, you got time to leave, so leave. That's why I'm just kind of dragging out. Come on, leave. Let me goon. Come on. You're okay. So for all my edgers out there, thank you for staying by. So at the end of the DLC, I decided to not pursue this Serpent's Crusade with the Vortex people, the Phantoms, and yeah, Onycs just disappears. And what it reminded me of was the biblical story of, like, you know, the Tower of Babel, where basically the people, like, this is when everybody spoke one language and was chill with each other. They were like, hey, let's just build a tower to God. And of course God, you know, didn't like that. So what he did was he confused their language and split them up. That's what this reminds me of. Like, Onycs was trying to get to the Great Serpent, Great Serpent, and he flew too close to the sun, and what the Great Serpent did, he punished him, in my opinion. Yes, I think the Great Serpent is real. Now, of course, you don't get to know who the Great Serpent is, but honestly, if you play this DLC to find out who the Great Serpent is, then you played it for the wrong reasons. I don't think that was ever the case. But I think what happened at the end of the DLC is spoiling, or not spoiling, but teasing what's going to be a part of the next one. I do think that whatever you do in this DLC will determine what happens in the next one, like if you see a Onycs there. Because if the next one is about Starborn, then, and Starborn stuff is about the Unity, guess what created created grav drive technology that was used for the Vortex? The Unity piece and Starborn are connected. So wherever Onycs is, I think he is wherever the next DLC will take place. See, I hope they're doing a New Vegas thing. Come on, please, Bethesda, please. This is what I have left. So it would be really cool. But I think Onycs is wherever the next DLC is going to take place. Also, I had House O'Keefe be the new leader, the speaker, the guy from House O'Keefe. He's the new speaker, and I did not pursue the Serpent's Crusade in human form either. So, yeah. Great stuff. Honestly, great DLC. If the main campaign was just longer, it would be worth $30. But I cannot, like, right now, I cannot just spend $30 in it, right? I recommend just buying the collection, like the digital deluxe edition, and yeah. So thank you for sticking around. Comment what you think, whatever, and I'll see y'all later. Goodbye.
This is my vegetarian body!